Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. How are you doing? Is it good? Is everything well? I hope so. Today I thought about showing you what kind of a little baby chicken sleeping warrior is. Because I had a few days ago, maybe even a week now, I had a conversation. At first he was really nice. Sure, he has his own thoughts and definitions, but it was on the Brian's Logic video. I made a comment, or I responded to a comment from Riley. It was something along the lines, oh my god, do I really have to explain to you guys again how gravity works? And then he made a comment on, I think, the TikTok video I did, and he said,
"Hey, you left a message on Brian's Logic's video about Einstein debunking the moon landings. You offered a video on gravity. Yes, could you make a video for me with gravity? Start with a definition and source for where you get that definition from. We will take it from there."
And I said, hey, video uploaded on Sunday, bichacho. But I know you will probably dismiss it without thinking about it. Sure, let's see what you have to say after the video. And I meant it, because I can put in the description as many links to citations and studies and experiments. He will find something to say.
No, it's not gravity.
We know that. It's not the first time anyone has interacted with Riley or any conspiracy theorist ever. So he responded then saying, if I go to the effort and do my research and put a coherent video about gravity together, that he will respond with a dedicated video as unlisted, so we could respond to each other with unlisted videos. And I thought, okay, that sounds pretty fair to me. And I said, the video on Sunday will be a debunk of Brian's video. But as I mentioned in the intro for that video, I explained some misconceptions and gravity itself for everyone, not just conspiracy theorists. If you're not okay with that video as the basis for a conversation, I'm willing to make a dedicated video, unlisted as well. I'd like to have a conversation/discussion without any insults, but evidence and citation. And as you probably know, he is the dependent and independent variable guy, and for sure he asked for the same in that comment. And he answered, well, a few key terms we need to really agree or disagree on would be the following definitions. Do you have any problems with these? They are all capable of finding with one word search terms on Google. Science. Noun, the intellectual and practical activity encompassing the systematic study of structure and behavior of the physical neutral world through observation and experiment. Pseudoscience, we all know what pseudoscience is. Hypothesis, we all know hypothesis is the idea, a claim that has to get confirmed by many different experiments so it can later become a theory. And then he had his independent and dependent variable, of course. And then he said, I'm an empiricist by nature. I want to see evidence, not sums or diagrams or illustrations. Diagrams can be evidence if you have the source for where do the numbers come from and all of that. But that's the first thing we disagreed again. Not the first thing, but a big thing in this comment I absolutely disagreed with. I want to see the cause of ice forming is temperature. I want to see the cause of bullets firing is pulling the trigger. I want to see the cause of plant growth is the temperature, the light, the nutrients, and the moisture. I want to see the cause of scurvy is a lack of vitamin C, blah 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 blah. I don't want to see calculations to prove that ice will form at a certain temperature. I don't want to see a diagram for how to fire a bullet. I don't want to see plant growth being described in words. Anything you struggle with here. And again, this arrogance, this looking down on me, but I'm a woman. I get this all the fucking time, so it wasn't surprising in any way. I responded with a few links because it's my video, I can respond with links. And I said, we won't bother with anecdotal evidence because it cannot stand without backing up. Because he will say, but I experienced, or my anecdote is, and I did, so that's what I wanted to just dismiss in the first place. Anecdotal evidence, we just won't bother with it. When we can't agree on this, there's no point. You want science, then you have to agree that calculations, studies, and papers are evidence, scientific method, and how to approach conclusions. And then again, a link. As an example, not necessarily subject to the discussion later, when you did your experiment with the egg, there was a problem with your conclusion. Yes, you changed the density of the medium, therefore the egg moved. But in science you have to try to disprove your own conclusion before you're finished. You did not take into account that the changed density results in a bigger gravitational pull on the medium, more atoms to pull on. Therefore, gravity pulled more of the medium under the egg and pushing it upwards. Even if you don't believe in it, in science you have to take it into account and find a way to disprove it then. To the observations, you simply can't see oxygen, but it's still there. Without agreeing that calculations are evidence, we cannot start. And I stand by that, because when we know that the gravitational constant is 9.81 meters per second squared, come on, when I can calculate with that and make predictions, and these predictions will be confirmed in the experiment. The calculations are there to back up the result. Sure, on its own, it's not really evidence in itself, but with all together, it is. And the problem with him is, you can't come with the biggest experiment and evidence when there is just a teeny tiny bit of calculation. He goes, not evidence. And it is. And his response was, I cannot post links, but I do not see scientific evidence in that first link. Look onto the first fucking link. Blah, 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 blah. sciencemediacenter.co.nz/ covering science / types of scientific evidence. It's literally in the link. I mean, maybe that's why he didn't want to go on a debate or something like that with people. Maybe it's because he cannot read. And he said, scientific evidence is the strongest kind of evidence we have. It's not even cited in that first one though. He thinks scientific evidence is just one way of evidence. Scientific evidence is an umbrella term. There's so many different scientific evidences or forms of scientific evidence. There's anecdotal evidence, there are papers, there's calculation. Let me just, this is the link I sent to Sleepy. And he said, there's nothing mentioned about scientific evidence, even though the whole website I sent him is about types of scientific evidences. For example, the first one, anecdotal and expert opinions, animal and cell studies, case reports and case series, case control studies, which is observational, cohort studies, randomized control trials, which is also again experimental, and then systemic review. This is scientific evidence. Although this probably refers more to medical evidence, it is scientific evidence. Every experiment you make, every experiment you conduct, you need to do the case research, you need a whole series of experiments. You need to try to disprove the claim. Then you have to randomize everything, so your bias has nothing to do with what will be the result of your experiment. So that is about scientific evidence. Then he said, I like the second one. That was about what constitutes science and scientific evidence. I agree that anecdotal evidence has no value. You want science, then you have, so he quoted me, you want science, then you have to agree that calculations, studies, and papers are evidence. His response, calculations, studies, and papers are not scientific evidence. They don't prove the cause of any effect. They may calculate, describe, quantify stuff, but they are not scientific evidence. That's the only evidence that is credible. The thing is, he has his own definition for everything, which is weird. He screams scientific evidence. He says, I want science. I want the scientific method. But he has his own weird definitions for both of it. And with your own definition that is so far away from the scientific definition, that's why I send him links and not my own definition. Because when we're talking about science, and especially physics in that case, I don't want to try to compel to his definition, but to the scientific definition. So how can you be so arrogant to think you have your own definition of science as a not scientist, as an uneducated prick, and claim that this is real science? What every scientist in the world does is wrong. It really, it hurts my brain. I cannot understand how he has this confidence. I mean, I do know why. It's the Dunning-Kruger effect. We all know this by now probably, but it's just so weird to me to think about that he really thinks he has the only definition. We know, so because you have to manipulate the independent variable. I hate it. Again, quote from me, when you did your experiment with the egg, there was a problem with your conclusion. His response, I proved my alternative hypothesis and was able to reject my null hypothesis. There was no conclusion. Yes. I don't know if he watched his own video or he was present during the video, but he had a conclusion. And it was wrong. You did not take into account that the changed density results in a bigger gravitational pull on the medium, more atoms to pull on. Therefore, gravity pulled more of the medium under the egg and pushing it upwards. His response? Now you are claiming that the stated hypothesis is actually a correlation. If you have evidence that proves that correlation, I will gladly stand corrected. Nobody has demonstrated any evidence to support your position, and Einstein dismissed your correlation claim. No, when he redefined gravity from being a cause of things accelerating to an effect of bendy spacetime. So if you're actually claiming that Einstein was wrong, no, he wasn't wrong, and he did redefine gravity as an effect of curved space-time. So yes, technically, gravity is now an effect, but what we see, what we experience, how we calculate it is still the same. It doesn't matter if you think about it as a force or an effect. Newton was right, Einstein was right. Newton made the observation, and Einstein said, hey, that is why you can't observe this. Nothing changed. It's so hypocritical from him to act like he knows everything and science, then uses science, turns it around and say, hey, here's the science that disproves science, but here is scientific evidence, but not the scientific definition, but my own definition. And I use the scientific method, but not the scientific definition of scientific method, but my own definition. that was also so stupid. You simply can't see oxygen, but it is still there. His response: interesting. Are you familiar with a phlogiston? I don't know how it's pronounced in English. In German it's phlogiston. Position before oxygen was proven? If not, you should look it up. It directly compares with gravity and what you're doing with gravity. No, it doesn't. Phlogiston was just an idea. It was a hypothesis that couldn't be confirmed. It actually was disproven. So it has nothing to do with gravity in that case. I'm sorry. Gravity has been proven many, many times. Even though you probably don't know, it is. Without agreeing that calculations are evidence, we can start mathematics, now the abstract science of number, quantity, and space. Either as blah 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 blah, or as applied to the disciplines such as physics and engineering, applied mathematics. So, abstract in that case means just that it's not a natural thing in itself. But we have, as humanity, perfected mathematics and the way we can calculate the world around us. That we know when we calculate something, we claim this is the prediction, this will happen, this is my hypothesis. Then we conduct the experiment. And when this case happens actually as predicted, we know that our calculations are right. It doesn't mean that you cannot calculate anything. Come on, guys, you were in school. At least for a few years, you must have been in some kind of school. And I cannot believe that in the UK, this stuff isn't part of school, right? And he goes on with, I can see where you're going. You want to calculate correlation into existence rather than prove the cause of an effect. No, that's pseudoscience by definition. It isn't based on scientific method. It's based on the abstract language known as French. No, I mean art. No, I mean maths. This basically brings our conversation to the point where we disagree. You think you can calculate into existent beliefs. Scientific method excludes calculations as it's defined as abstract and it's not based on experiments, which is completely wrong. It really angers me that you can be so ignorant as an uneducated little boy to think that you have the only knowledge that science is missing. You're a fucking idiot, boy. This basically brings our conversation to the point where we disagree. You think you can calculate into existent beliefs. Scientific method excludes calculations as it's defined as abstract and it's not based on an experiment. So which is it? Calculated correlation or demonstrated causation within scientific method? Perhaps you should just do your video and calculate the effect of gravity, ignore Einstein totally and hope I won't notice? Buddy, you cannot notice anything. You're an idiot. That's it. And I, of course, answered like, hey, the first link is literally called scientific evidence. But of course he has its own definition and he's the God's gift to the world to enlighten and wake all of us sheep up. Right? Sleepy, right? I would like to see if Sleepy would be able to take a, I don't know, 7th grade physics test, because I venture to doubt. He claims to have all the knowledge of the world, but cannot find the word scientific evidence in a link. So if you want to read that, you can pause now. I will just pick some things up. For example, but why am I saying anything? You apparently know more than every scientist ever. So you should be able to read how to write a real paper, calculate and predict your relative density stuff, and can repeat it in different media. If relative density was a thing, which is not, by the way, then you need to be, or you have to be able to do this in different media, and he's not. And I think that's why he just dismisses mathematics as a whole, because when we had our first discussion, I think 1 or 2 months ago, I asked him for an equation. I said, okay, how do you calculate your relative density from the object to the medium? He just was like, yeah, and when you do this, you can extrapolate how fast and which direction, and you figure it out. And I told him, no, because when I try to make sense out of this and will be able to disprove your claim, you will just cry and say,
Nah, you did it wrong, fucking Glober.
So I said, hey, show me how you do it. Show me your calculations. Then we can do a video or a live stream together and make an experiment, and we'll see. But of course, bitched out again. And his response was, here it is. Then make your video, achieve nothing, and deny science. And I just responded with, okay, Dr. Professor Sleepy. And then he deleted everything.
I wonder why he deleted it.
Because he knows he's wrong. He knows there is no such thing as relative density as a replacement for gravity. I think it's fun. I hope he responds and I get a little bit more content out of it, because what he did, how he responded is just ridiculous, let's be honest. I really, really thought he would at least try to convince me that I'm wrong. But he didn't, because apparently he knows I'm more stubborn than him. We call it in German Dickkopf. And I am. When I know I'm right, what the fuck? I will not give in. I don't fucking care. That's why I made my YouTube channel, and that's why I just enjoy talking to stupid people. So, I hope you did like this video. If so, please leave a like and subscribe. I could really use it. I hope I will get to the 1,000. If you did like this video, please leave a like and a subscribe and a comment, because I could really use a little bit of help. I want to reach the 1,000s this year, hopefully soon, and I can only achieve this with your guys' help. Please join the... I don't really have a name. We have to come up with a name. If you have an idea how I could call all of you, except of bichachos, leave me a comment down below. I really need a name. I would say Chatbot Army, but I just stole it from Sean, so I need something else. So I will link all of my socials and my Discord server and Patreon down in the description. If you're interested, just look into it. Maybe you think it's pretty cool, maybe not. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!